What's up, guys? So check it out. I want to talk a little bit about insulin, blood sugar, insulin resistance, and what I've learned about it so far. So I'll start off by telling you, insulin is a hormone that is produced by the pancreas. Okay? So a signal goes off to the pancreas and tells the pancreas to start producing insulin. So now I'll tell you what triggers that signal. Okay? So first, carbs. Okay, carbs or refined sugars especially. So refined sugars like table sugars are the worst. Okay? But carbohydrates are turned into sugars by the body. So carbs and refined sugars will spike insulin, because when blood sugar goes up, then insulin needs to be produced. Okay, another thing that will spike your insulin, okay, or will trigger your insulin is amino acids, as far as I understand. Amino acids are basically proteins, okay? Now, amino acids won't necessarily spike blood sugar all by themselves, and I'll explain that more in a little bit. So one thing that can trigger the pancreas to make insulin is carbs, sugar. Another thing that can trigger the pancreas to make insulin, amino acids or proteins. Okay? Another thing that can trigger insulin, or that can trigger the pancreas to make insulin, are hormones in the gastrointestinal tract. So basically, in your digestive system, there's hormones that can trigger the production of insulin. Okay? With that being said, one last thing that can trigger insulin is stress, because stress makes cortisol, and cortisol is a hormone that will raise your blood sugar. And when your blood sugar becomes raised or elevated, your pancreas needs to make insulin to process that blood sugar. So carbs or sugars will trigger insulin. Amino acids, basically proteins, will trigger insulin. Hormones in your digestive system, in your gastrointestinal tract, will trigger insulin, and stress will trigger insulin. With that being said, insulin is basically like a key that allows glucose to enter your cells. It can also be seen like this. Insulin is like a chef that feeds the cells sugar. Okay? So, what happens is you either eat carbs or one of the other things that triggers insulin. So you trigger insulin by raising your blood sugar. Insulin starts being produced so that it can go open up the cells to let that blood sugar into the cells. Insulin also stores blood sugar. That's another job of insulin. One job is to open up the cell and allow the glucose, which is the sugar, into the cell. Another job of insulin is to store the blood sugar. And insulin will store glucose in the form of glycogen. Glycogen is basically a bunch of glucose molecules chained together. And glycogen is stored mainly in the liver and also in the muscles. Okay, with that being said, another job of insulin is to lower blood sugar. Okay, so insulin is a key or a chef. It opens the cell and allows the sugar or glucose into the cell, or it feeds the cell glucose. It stores glucose in the form of glycogen, mainly in the liver and also in the muscles, and it brings blood sugar down. Okay? What happens is, as far as I understand, when you elevate your blood sugar for too long, too high for too long, for extensive periods of time, sometimes years, you begin developing insulin resistance, which is basically when receptors on the cells stop responding to the insulin. They won't acknowledge the insulin. Therefore, they won't open up. So the key, the insulin, which is the key, is not working anymore, or is not as effective. Therefore, the sugar that's supposed to be entering the cells is not being able to be absorbed, or is not being able to enter the cells. Why is that significant? Because there's something called a feedback loop. Okay? It's my brown rice. Anyways, those are carbs. There's something called a feedback loop, which is basically when a hormone gets turned on by a signal, and then a signal is sent that turns the hormone off. Insulin is a hormone. So a signal gets turned on to start producing insulin. A signal goes to the pancreas to start producing insulin. And once the cell has had enough glucose, once the cell has been fed, once enough glucose has been absorbed, has entered the cell, a signal is sent back to the pancreas to stop the production of insulin. Well, when the key, the insulin, is not working, then the cell is not absorbing the sugar, the glucose. The glucose is not entering the cell. And in order to give the signal to the pancreas to turn off the production of insulin, the cell needs to be fed. And since it's not being fed, the pancreas just continues to make more insulin, as far as I understand, trying to basically fix the problem, which is that the cells are not getting fed. All right, guys, so what happens is insulin is also important, as far as I understand, to absorb magnesium and potassium. So your energy, you start feeling fatigued. So huge symptoms of pre-diabetes or insulin resistance or diabetics are you're very tired after you eat. Like when you eat a big meal especially, you feel like tired, like you want to go take a nap. Another symptom is you pee a lot. Apparently when your insulin is up, it makes you pee more. When your insulin rises, it makes you urinate more. And then there's one more symptom, but those are two very strong symptoms. Okay, you get tired after you eat and you pee a lot. Okay, so with that being said, When you eat carbs, especially refined sugars, that's going to really spike your blood sugar, which is going to make insulin, or which is going to trigger the pancreas to start producing insulin. However, as far as I understand, when you eat sugars or carbs and protein at the same time, it basically doubles your blood sugar or your insulin. Not your blood sugar. As far as I understand, when you eat carbs and proteins at the same time, it doubles the insulin production. So your insulin just starts going higher. So for example, like a hot dog with a bun, the hot dog is the meat, the protein, and the bun is the carb, the sugar. Or like a hamburger with ketchup, the ketchup is the sugar and the hamburger is the protein. Or like a hamburger with a soda or with fries, the soda or the fries are the sugar or the carbs, and the hamburger is the protein. And apparently, when you eat carbs and protein together, it just affects your insulin levels that much more. Okay? So, when the insulin is not working properly, your cells are not being able to absorb the insulin, nowhere near as effective as they should be, which affects the signal that is supposed to be sent to the pancreas to stop producing insulin. So what happens is sugar starts being stored as belly fat. So you start getting a big belly because that sugar starts becoming stored as belly fat. And also, as far as I understand, it starts getting stored in the liver, and you can start getting a fatty liver. Too much fat in your liver, which is dangerous. It can potentially be dangerous. So yeah, guys, that's a little bit about what I've learned about insulin resistance, and blood sugar. If you have high blood sugar for too long, consistently high blood sugar for too long, you're going to become resistant to insulin, which is going to mess up the signal. And insulin is a hormone, so you're going to be producing too much of that hormone, which is going to cause hormone imbalances. It's going to cause your energy to go down. You're going to apparently, the symptoms are you're going to pee a lot, and you're going to feel tired after you eat a lot. And there was one more symptom that was very intriguing that I was really wanted to mention as well. Cravings, guys, cravings. You're going to crave, for example, sugar a lot. So if you ever have really strong cravings for like sweet foods, if you pee a lot, or if you feel tired after you eat big meals, about 50% of the population in America, as far as I understand, is either pre-diabetic or diabetic. So they're insulin resistant to some extent. So big sugar cravings, for example. You go pee a lot and you feel tired after you eat. Those are some major symptoms. All right? I know I've experienced them. With that being said, guys, that's, like I said, a little bit about insulin resistance, blood sugar, and what's going on with that whole process. All right, guys? So carbs will trigger sugar, carbs will trigger insulin. And if you eat carbs and protein together, it's going to make it much worse. Stress will raise blood sugar, which will trigger insulin. And too much insulin in the body for too long, or too much blood sugar in the body for too long, will create insulin resistance. That's going to make it hard for you to have more energy. And like I said, it'll make hormone imbalances. And overall, it will affect your health significantly, as far as I understand. All right, guys, so I'll talk to y'all later. Peace. Peace out.